curious.
I'm curious. I am curious. Curious.
By nature.
Welcome to Curious by Nature. I'm Jessica Johnson from Newswise. A purse isn't just an accessory. It's a story, a statement, and sometimes a lifeline. That's the lens through which today's guest explores history. In her new book, The Things She Carried, A Cultural History of the Purse in America, Dr. Kathleen Casey uncovers how a seemingly ordinary object reflects deep connections to gender, identity, privacy, and even survival. With relevance to the civil rights movement, workplace struggles, personal memories, and national tragedies, she documents how purses have been tools with a rich tapestry of cultural meaning. Dr. Casey, welcome. Please introduce yourself and your work.
My name is Kathleen Casey, and I am a professor of history and also the director of the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Program at Furman University. Furman is a small liberal arts college in South Carolina. I'm curious about so many things and always have been my whole life.
What inspired you to write The Things She Carried?
As you noted, it's called The Things She's Carried, and the subtitle is A Cultural History of the Purse in America. So the way I got started on this project was sort of unexpected and personal. So a lot of times academics write for other academics and scholarly audiences, but I kind of knew right away I wanted to do something a little bit different from that. And the origin of the concept of the book actually came from arguments I would have with my little sister, who's very fashion conscious. So in grad school, I used to carry around this burlap sack, which I actually have a picture of that I could share with you if you want. And I carried it for about a dozen years, and I wasn't very nice to it. I've set it down on floors and then, all over the place and traveled with it across the country and outside the country. And it didn't really have a secure closing no zipper, no button, so my stuff would just spill out and embarrass me, or it'd get caught on the ends of grocery aisles. And so my sister, as it increasingly became ragged and developed holes in it, and it started to look, a nice way of saying it would probably be kind of boho chic. Other people might say it looks like it should be thrown out. She used to tell me, I'm going to put that in the garbage disposal when you're not looking, or I'm going to set that on fire. I'm not going to be seen with you while you carry that thing. And I just started to think about that a lot and was wondering, why does this item that to me, I'm either indifferent about, or, I think it's kind of a burden, kind of a pain in the butt. Why is it so important? And why is it that not only my sister, but random women are commenting on it to me? And it was happening more and more frequently, this more tattered the bag got. And so I just started asking, where did the purse come from, right? And how did it become linked to American women? Womenhood more generally, but I'm working in the American cultural context. So thinking about why purses became associated with femininity, to the point where I think today most American straight cisgender men do not want to even touch a purse or hold on to their girlfriend or wife's purse for a few moments while she uses the bathroom. And I was just there's got to be a story about how it became that way. There has to have been a process. So that kind of sort of first piqued my interest and made me think maybe there's a story here that has never been told. And it turns out there was. There's so many different episodes in American history that I was able to examine from the sort of perspective of the purse and the purse carrier. And some of them are actually quite famous, like thinking about Black women in the civil rights movement, particularly someone like Rosa Parks, who is famous for helping to initiate the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955 in Alabama. But actually, I found out she tried to integrate a Montgomery City bus with her purse in 1943, 12 years earlier. And so I started thinking about purses as a toolkit, and how various women, particularly marginalized women, have used purses to create more space and to get access to privacy and autonomy in a world that didn't give them very much of that. So it kind of has spiraled from there, from a seemingly very little project to something that's actually really quite expansive and complex.
Yeah, so tell us some of those complexities. Is there a particular story
within there that maybe you can share that gives a little bit of background of why the purse has become so important?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a couple examples. One of the ones I found really intriguing was um, I started researching the Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire, which happened in New York City in 1911. The women who worked there were almost all immigrants, mostly young. Many of them were girls, didn't speak English. They were fighting for better working conditions for years before this fire happened. And unfortunately, um, their conditions were not improved to the point where um, the fire became avoidable. So what happened is the women who were making shirtwaists, which were a kind of blouse from this period, were actually locked in the building, and they had to stand in line and have their purses inspected by basically like bouncers for the factory to make sure that they weren't stealing thread, ribbon, buttons, any material. Women were really not trusted and considered, suspicious. And so obviously being locked in the factory was dangerous. And finally, around 4 or 5 o'clock in March 1911, a fire broke out. And while the women are waiting in line to have their purses inspected, the fire spreads really rapidly. And 123 women will die that day. And many of them actually go retrieve their purses from their workstations, even at the risk of their own lives. And they will throw their purses out the window 9 stories down to the people gathered on the sidewalk below. And when many of them burn alive or asphyxiate or they end up hitting the pavement, the police actually use their purses to identify who they are. And then the purses play a surprising role in the criminal trial that follows. They actually do a live demonstration of one of the survivors and suggest that she could have been stealing 3 different blouses because of the purse that she was carrying. And so there's just this whole through line with purses, which people were calling pocketbooks at that time. And just thinking about how women used that space, how important it was to have that little bit of privacy at a job where they couldn't even just go to the restroom when they needed to, and they were working 12 and 15-hour shifts. Um, Another really fascinating story I found, which is also quite tragic, was the story of a man named Melvin Holt. He was a bus driver in Nashville, Tennessee in 2001 when he boarded a midnight cruise with his fiance and another couple, a guy named Melvin Holt and his it was either girlfriend or wife. At the end of the night, Willie Houston's fiance says, "Hey, I have to use the bathroom. Can you hold my purse?" And he says, "Okay." And so she goes off with the other woman and the other couple. And then Melvin Holt, who's his blind friend, says, "Actually, I need to use the restroom too. Can you escort me?" So Willie Houston, holding his fiance's purse, escorts his blind friend into the men's restroom. And they're met with harassment immediately. A man starts flinging homophobic slurs at them. So they quickly turn around and walk out. The couples reunite, they head back to their car. But so does the man who was saying the homophobic slurs. He goes to his car and gets a gun. And he meets Willie Houston right outside his car and shoots him point blank in the chest and kills him on the spot in front of his fiance and the other couple. And so to me, it just demonstrated how important this one object was and why it seemed to be so linked, deeply linked to femininity, gender, sexuality, and why it was so threatening to have a man carry a woman's purse into a space like a men's restroom.
The fact that many men don't want to hold purses can be very frustrating and irritating, and like, get over it. And then you hear stories like this and you think, okay, I can have maybe a little bit more sympathy for them.
Yeah, I mean, and think about the courage that a gay man or a trans woman living openly has to summon up to carry a purse in public spaces, knowing potentially their life is on the line, right? And the level of care and commitment that goes into that, and how it's not just a mundane, meaningless accessory.
That's true. I guess that's what your book is sharing, that it isn't just a mundane accessory.
Yeah. Not that fashion isn't really interesting and can reveal all kinds of things in and of itself, but I think there's so much more to purses that tell us about people, and I guess that's what I'm primarily interested in, the stories of ordinary people.
And with all the ways that purses are fun or helpful or, um, that they allow us to be flexible in our daily lives. But then thinking about how they weigh us down as well is something that can be important. And what could life be like if we didn't have them? What would be the benefits of not having to carry around sometimes these heavy purses every day?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my shoulders would be more in alignment for one. But yeah, it's actually it's almost impossible for me to imagine that because I mean, even as a little girl, I remember being given my first like pink patent leather purse and feeling like, oh, like I'm playing being a woman now. Like I'm imagining myself in this role, in a role that will stay with me like forever, right? I'm always going to need these certain things with me. To be honest, as a professor, I actually usually carry a book bag because now I not only want to have all the stuff you'd would have put in a purse, but I need my laptop and I need multiple books with me at all times. And so I'm carrying around even more and heavier weight than I used to. So it's even harder for me to imagine not carrying something with me. I think I would feel naked in a way.
It's that anxiety a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think will be the future of purses?
Well, I mean, I have an epilogue in the book where I talk about this, and why I don't think that they're going to go away. Um, for some of the reasons I already mentioned, there's something about the physical quality, the material quality of the purse. It's also sort of an emotional agent to which we have this like complicated relationship that we don't always like think about explicitly. But every woman I've talked to about the concept for this book has responded by sharing with me an anecdote about at least one of her purses and something that happened with the purse. Like we have really strong feelings about these objects. And I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't either hate them or love them, right? Like you're not typically sort of like, oh, whatever about purses. Like many people are they have a sort of relationship with the concept of purses and individual purses. And so, yeah, I just don't think they're going to go anywhere. And maybe the things we carry will continue to get smaller and smaller as perhaps cell phones will shrink even smaller. And I mean, a lot of things that have been designed were manufactured and marketed specifically as being purse sized, right? So the first lipsticks, um, little perfume diffusers, lots of different kinds of makeup and hygiene products. There was something called the purse stick that was like a body deodorant. Um, uh, were all actually designed to go with the purse, right? And the purse was even used to market things like the first Kotex sanitary pads and Tampax tampons because they couldn't show the actual product in the marketing. They thought it would offend viewers, so they just showed a woman like slipping something into a purse. Um, so yeah, I don't see them going anywhere, even though I'd like to lighten my own load and be carrying less myself.
For you personally, you like to have your things with you, but you don't really like purses.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
I especially don't like purses that have like big bows on them or charms or are shiny that just call so much attention to themselves. Um, I don't know. I don't want my purse or anything I carry to speak for me. And I actually teach a class about apparel in American history. So I think about like clothing and costume, and accessories and how they play the central role in performing our identities, representing ourselves, and how we interact with other people, how we assume affinities with other people or differences. So much of that silent communication is happening by what we wear and what we adorn ourselves with. And so I don't think I had ever explicitly thought about why I didn't like purses until I started having those conversations with my sister and really digging into the history. And that sort of explained for me, I think, why I didn't want an object speaking for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you preferred to have something that looked old and tattered and was you could throw on the floor and you didn't give it a lot of attention.
Yeah, I think I just wanted something purely utilitarian. I didn't want something that, people thought was girly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think some of that is maybe even like internalized misogyny that like we are just very dismissive about women and their things, right? And like think it's silly how much money some women have spent on their purses or how many purses they owned. And I think part of me was sort of unknowingly averse to that.
So yes, where can everyone find your book?
It's on Bookshop, on Amazon. It's on the Oxford University Press website, and I actually have a discount code I can share with your viewers too. Um, and I think it'll be available pretty much anywhere online. But I'll also be doing some talks in bookstores throughout the American South. So it'll be available at those places too. One of them is Karis Bookstore in Atlanta. And I'll be doing some other podcasts. And so hopefully it'll be easily accessible. I don't know that it'll be in Barnes and Noble, but it is being marketed as a trade book. So it won't just be the usual places where academics find their books.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for taking the time today to tell me more about your book and this incredible research you've done.
Curious by Nature is a production of Newswise. More than 7,000 journalists get the Newswise wires. Visit newswise.com and find out how to spread your news today.